So this is actually the last video for this in this series of solving the Rubik's Cube. Again, for people who already knew how to solve this cube. And so what we've done is the first stage we got all 8 corners, and then the second stage we put up some totem poles, and then the next stage we correctly positioned the remaining 4 middle edges. So now all we have left to do is to flip pairs of edges. And I want to demonstrate first on a solved cube why this thing works. Okay, so it kind of is like our right, right, middle, middle, right, right, middle, middle, but it's not. It's right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, and so on. And but it switches in the middle. I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle. So 4 of those, and then middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right. So why do I switch in the middle? So here's what's going on. Here's what happens if I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle. So we inspect the cube and see what happened. We had a whole bunch of flips going on. So we had flips next door, flips, and we had across flips, so 4 flipped together. But what the routine I gave you does is it only flips 2, and it actually flips these 2. So how does that happen? Well, it's very easy. This is the middle point, and I'm going to flip these 2. I'm going to flip. So what did it do? To the middle layer, it flipped all 3 except this guy. And then as a side effect, it flipped this guy down on the bottom. We don't care about him because we're going to do the routine again, and the bottom layer is just going to be affected in exactly the same way. So then we're just going to re-flip him, so he doesn't matter. But what's going to happen if I just do the whole routine again? The same guys are going to flip. But if I switch, so if I do in the middle of the routine, I go, whoops, flip the middle guy. Now, what just happened when I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle? Is that everybody except that guy flips. So if I switch and then go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle again, then what's going to happen is everybody except this guy's going to flip. Specifically, this guy who, like the one guy who was unaffected before, is definitely going to flip. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to flip everyone except him again, but first I'm going to go like this. So actually, that red-green flip is going to stay, and this green-orange guy who wasn't flipped will be flipped. So we go like this. Right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle. But you're like, oh, wait a minute, it looks all messed up. Well, that's right, because we rotated that middle layer too many times. And that's why we go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, middle. And then it's like we go right, middle, right, middle, right. But we drop the last middle because we'd have to undo it again because that middle layer has gone around too many times. Okay? So we speed it up and we just go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right. And then we know these 2 guys are the 2 that are going to get flipped. Right? So you could keep track of what we just talked about and say, oh, well, if I want to flip 4 at a time, I can do that. And that's the smart thing to do. But I'm not asking you to overanalyze the instructions. I'm asking you to memorize as little as possible. So if you want to branch out and do other things, that's great. But all I'm asking you to do is remember that if I want to flip these 2 guys on the right-hand side, those 2 guys want to flip, I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right. And so I didn't have to really think about the fact that this guy flipped twice, I don't care, and then, let's see, this guy flipped, and that guy didn't flip, so I don't have to keep track of what happened at the halfway point, okay? I don't really care. So, for example, if I did care about what happened, this is perfect. I mean, I know if I go like this, I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, and this guy won't flip, and those exact 4 guys will flip, and we'll be done. But I didn't ask you to do it that way, and you're more than welcome to do it that way, but it's less to remember to just say, I'm always going to remember those 2 guys flip if I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right. So maybe I'm wasting time, but who cares? Alright, so now what? We're done with the last, down to the last bitter end, there's just 2 more. We now have to talk about what's called setup moves. So I can't use my special routine unless I first do this. This is not a bad deal. This is really not bad because I can solve this now, and then at the end I'll just undo that one setup move. Okay, so now I go right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right. And then all I have to do is undo the setup move, and that guy's solved. However, there's one situation I didn't tell you about, which is a setup move. I can use the same cube, I guess. What if I want to flip, let's just say, any 2? Usually you have to do more than 1 turn in your setup move. So for example, the hardest one I think is when these 2 adjacent guys need to be flipped. Again, you can make use of the fact that right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle flips adjacent pieces. And then you can unflip the other 2. But, you know, you don't have to. You can just use setup moves if you want. So let's do the red, white, and blue thing. So blue and white, red and white. Let's say I want to flip those guys. So I can sort of orient my cube and say, well, how can I do a setup move so I can just put this guy right here. Red and white is going to be on the front right position. How can I flip this around to here in a way that I'll remember? Well, I can do this. It's just 2 moves. And you can tell now from the solved cube, it's not that hard when you just see this. You've been dealing with cubes long enough when you get to this stage that you should be able to solve a cube if you see it and you know there's only 2 twists. Okay? Well, 2 twists. Okay. So now I want to flip these 2, the white and red and the white and blue. So I go ding, 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 ding. That's the halfway point. Ding, 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 ding. I hope I didn't mess it up. And then I look very, very carefully and hope I didn't mess it up. And there we go. Yes. So that's exactly what I did. I flipped those 2 corners, which is what I intended to do. How do I undo that? Same way. This time I'll just slightly change it. I'm going to put the blue and white guy down here. Rotate the other bad edge over here. And again, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right, middle, right. Okay, so that's the other situation you can encounter. There may be other situations, and I'm going to look into that, and when I do my formal written instructions for you guys, that will include all the possible contingencies, but I think that pretty much covers it. If you've been playing with the cube and staying with me this long, that should be enough. You should be able to actually solve the cube now from these videos and from the instructions that I'm posting for my students on Blackboard. If you're not one of my students, just email me and I will send them to you. You can just email me at donnadietz@gmail.com. Try to send me some kind of plain email so that I don't lose it in my junk folder. Okay? If you're from an EDU account, that's even better. It's less likely to get spammed. Okay. Happy cubing.